Welcome back to episode 122 of Tall Boy Radio. Hope you enjoyed last week's episode where we were joined by Todd and Johnny from the Toddcast out of Pennsylvania and Virginia, respectively. Always entertaining when those two guys are on. Didn't expect to be talking as much about balls as we did, but hey ho, you never know which way this episode is going to go. So before we introduce our guest tonight, let's say hello to the two regular hosts to find out a little bit about what it is that they're drinking.
Evening, guys. Just following up on what Adam said. Really enjoyed Todd and Johnny last week. Really looking forward to where this is going. We're going to be talking about a topic that I absolutely love. I hope, and which is football, but we'll get into that a little bit more shortly. And tonight, I suppose in honour of the photo that Andy sent earlier, I'm drinking Leffe, depending on how you pronounce it, which is 6.6% of absolute pure goodness. And again, paying homage to Andy out of a genuine Leff glass. So thank you very much, sir. Much appreciated.
Very nice. Very nice. Andy, how's it pronounced?
Howdy, I'm on
Leffy
as well. Can't wait to talk more about balls.
Yay. Well, as well, in honour of last week's show, well, I'm drinking a couple of beers. I'll tell you what they are first. So I've got a Holy Goat Brewing Export Stout. I picked it just purely because I just love that label. That is outstanding in it. And the other one's pretty good as well. And like I say, in honour of my faux pas last week, this beer is called Goblin Cleaver. And I am not drinking out of a goblin or a goblet, just a regular glass.
Brilliant.
So, I thought you'd enjoy that one, guys. And we, like I said, we have a guest tonight. We are joined by a fellow podcaster. Do you want to say hello, Mark?
Good evening, everybody.
So, Mark, Gaz and I have known Mark for quite a few years, actually. We all went to the same school. And it was interesting enough, flicking through Facebook, that I discovered Mark is a fellow podcaster that does it locally. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your podcast, Mark?
Yeah, it's not mine. It was started by a Crewe fan that lived in Holmes Chapel and now lives in Dubai.
Wow.
So he's in exile. His name's Stuart, and he felt that he was a bit detached from the football club because he lived so far away, even though he supported him all his life. And there wasn't really a Crewe Alex podcast out there. So I think a few have tried and failed, so he took it upon himself to start it from Dubai, and I was fortunate enough to get asked as a guest about halfway through their first year, and I've been doing it ever since. And I mean, it's just going from strength to strength. They're going to have a website alongside it this year. We've had some really top guests on that have played for Crewe in the past, and we got the manager on, the last manager, before he unfortunately lost his job. So yeah, it's good, and it's touch wood. It's hopefully growing in popularity.
Yeah, I've seen you sharing your figures out. It is doing phenomenally well, and it's great to see. Do you want to tell people a little bit about Crewe Alex? Like I say, our listeners are dotted all around the globe. I think about 40% of them are in the UK, and like we joked earlier, some of those still might not be familiar with Crewe Alex. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the club?
Well, I wasn't familiar with them. I grew up, as you say, in Alsager alongside you two guys, and some of my friends were already going. And when you live around here, predominantly when I was at school, you supported Stoke Vale or Crewe. Yeah. You got the odd Liverpool, Man United fans, and Everton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I spotted that. I didn't know that 2 years supported. And they kept pestering me to go along. And I was a bit reluctant, if I'm honest, at first. I didn't really get into football till I was about 12, maybe. And then one Saturday, I got nothing better to do, about 30, just coming up to 35 years ago, and I went along. I thought that was me then.
It definitely isn't me.
It wasn't me.
Was it Andy? What
Andy's looking a little bit good. That was weird.
Silent assassin there.
My phone's always on silent.
Yeah, interesting.
So yeah, I went along, and I was hooked from the word go. There was more to it than that it sounds, I struggled very early on in my life with mental health. I didn't necessarily know it at the time. Sort of 11, 12, I didn't know what anxiety was, and I didn't know what panic attacks were, even though I was suffering with it all. And it was to do with childhood stuff, which is probably, for another time. And I remember when I walked in, it was completely alien to me. There was all these people that felt the smell of fag smoke, and we were all sort of, it was standing back then, and we were all stood, really tight together. And for the first time in my life, I suddenly felt part of something.
Yeah.
And it was this sort of togetherness. The game, to be honest, I think it was a 2-2 draw, and the game passed me by. There was obviously the banter going between both sets of fans, and I hadn't heard a lot of it before, and I didn't know what the songs were, and I didn't know what people were swearing about. But it didn't matter, because in there, nobody cared who I was. I was just part of this group, and there was another group over there that were somebody else, and it's that drew me in, really, initially. And I got the bug. I walked. I mean, obviously they scored 2 goals, and everybody was going nuts and jumping on each other, and random people are hugging and kissing each other, and you're like, this is amazing. And that was, like I say, it's coming up to 35 years ago, and I'm still a season ticket holder now. I went away. They were playing the following Tuesday night. I went and did some odd jobs for my granddad, bless him, and he gave me the money, and back I went, and I've been going ever since.
Fair play. Fair play. How much is it then to get in now? How much does it cost to get in Crewe now?
I think it's about 25 quid if you pay on the gate. I have a season ticket, which this year is £310 if you buy it before, I think it's June the 6th. I mean, living here, you've got Stoke, 12 miles up the road, Vale a little bit less, and then you're on the cusp of the northwest, so you've got Liverpool, Everton, United, and Man City.
Yeah.
So there's lots of other options that you can go and watch. I don't know if somebody had taken me to Liverpool, Man United, Stoke, Vale. I don't know if I'd have felt the same. I don't want to know. I'll never know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I went to that first, and if you follow Everton, I don't know who you two support, but when you go through life, jobs come and go.
A couple of poxy teams. One's from London, one's from Manchester. They both play in red with a little bit of white, so I might give it away. But yeah, they're both toffs. So
yeah, it's giving it away. But jobs come and go, and relationships come and go, and even family, pass on. But once you with a football club, for me anyway, I couldn't go anywhere else. That was it. There's been plenty of times over that 35 years, I can tell you, I wish I'd been taken somewhere else first.
I'm wearing this shirt, mate, and I absolutely agree 100%, because the amount of times, the stick I've got over the years, and currently, obviously, we're in a bit of bother at the moment, but yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Because I remember going on Boxing Day, it was 1983, 4, and we used to go up to my nan's sort of family on the Wirral, and my uncle was an Everton fan, and my 2 cousins were Everton fans, and they'd go to the games, and we went to my nan's, and my uncle sort of said, we're going to the game, Boxing Day, 3:00, leaving about 1:30, do you want to come? And I sort of looked at my dad, and I was like, can I go? And he's like, yeah, you've got to stay close to your Uncle Bob, sort of thing. And I went, and it was like, as you said, it's the first game I've been to live, and you go in, and it's like, wow. Like the first time you ever go to like a stadium, and it's just like jaw dropping, isn't it? And you're just like, and I remember he said, stand here. He said, you've got to stand here. And back in the day, it was standing, wasn't it? And it was in front of one of those big sort of almost like sort of metal sort of stanchions. And he said, stand in front of them. And I was like, why have I got to stand here? And he went, just wait. Fortunately, Everton scored, and the whole crowd just surged, but nobody could get to me because I'd got me back against this. And he went, that's why you stand there. I was like, right, okay. But the whole crowd just surged forward, and then they surged back. And it was like a sort of an awakening. And from that moment, well, that's it. They're your team. You can't support anybody else. That's just the law. People that swap teams, yeah, whatever, glory hunters and all that, but they're just your team.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't. My childhood wasn't great, and I was quiet and very withdrawn. Didn't have a lot of friends, and I remember it was that, like, when I walked through that turnstile. When I think back now, I left all that at the gate, and when I walked in there, nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew that I'd only been coming for 6 months. Nobody knew that I hadn't got many friends. People would talk to you and say hello just because you were in that stand, and it's that I can't say you don't get that from other sports because I don't follow them, but I think it's certainly a unique thing to football.
Yeah, it is like the football family, and it is almost like a religion to some people, isn't it? It is. That's what they do. There's like-minded people. They go at the weekend, they do it. They go midweek, they go home, they go away, and it is that like-minded belonging to a family, a movement, or whatever you want to call it, like religion, almost, you know. And there's been so many sort of documentaries and films and TV shows made about, you know, the belonging that people feel when they associate with football clubs. It is incredible. It's an incredible pull, isn't it?
Initially, I went there because my friends were going, and so I went with them. Obviously, as I got more into football and sort of started to understand what Crewe were and what they were about, you know, I realised that they weren't a particularly fashionable club to follow. Like, people didn't really know who they were. There was much bigger clubs, like I've said, close by, and it was almost like an attraction because, like I've already said to you, I wasn't very confident. I wasn't very well known. I was quiet and withdrawn, and I sort of related to the football club, if you know what I mean. It was like that underdog thing. Like, I fit in here. Like, I see myself in the football club. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, it does. It does that.
And it was kind of, people still ask me now, you know, all these years later, like, why'd you go and watch them? And I can't imagine following anybody else. I just can't. It's just a very unique thing to me.
See, while Gaz is on mute, what I will say is, you know, I've never visited Gresty Road, but I have visited Goodison, and obviously I've been down to watch the Arsenal, which, as Gaz might have just hinted a little bit at there, and there is a tribal side to it almost. I think I'd put it akin to being part of a tribe, that you see somebody in your own colours and you recognise them. And I'm the same as yourself. I'm fairly quiet. I'm not hugely outgoing. But people will approach you and have a conversation with you. I can remember I was on holiday. I was in New York, and literally I had my Arsenal shirt on, and some dude came out the lift, and they were also wearing Arsenal shirts. And you know, we all had a few beers and hugging and chatting about the game because they were off to watch the game then, and I was off to try and find and watch a place to find and watch it. Sorry, and it was it's quite unusual like that you have that bond. I think Brad put it really well that we had on the Pub Time podcast. Now, they're big NFL fans, and he sort of put it as being emotionally bound into something that you have no control over. And I think that's a really interesting way of putting it, because you're drawn to it. You're a part of it. You ride the wave with it, but you have no control over the outcome of that game and how you're going to feel throughout. And it's really quite interesting in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, it's given me some massive highs, believe it or not. It really has, and some really, really bad lows at the same time. I think, you know, I did a promotion video for him a couple of weeks ago to promote season tickets, and I was saying then that if you're going to support Crewe, then you have to accept and buy into exactly what they are. If you want to see teams winning leagues and FA Cups and Champions Leagues, then you need to go and watch football somewhere else. Yeah. You have to buy into exactly what they are. They're a lower league club that are probably going to yo-yo between the bottom two leagues, although they had a significant spell in the Championship in the 2000s. But you know, it's a labour of love, and you're right. I think you have to enjoy the journey. Like, when it's good, you have to enjoy those moments when it's good, because you know it's not going to be good for very long, and then it soon disappears.
It's strange, isn't it? Because it Crewe. I mean, I've grown up most of my life sort of in and around Alsager, and it's like a hometown club. It's a bit like Port Vale. It's a bit like Stoke. Although Stoke have been slightly more successful, arguably, but it's like a hometown club. You don't get many, I say, glory hunters and stuff. You wouldn't get nowadays. You like with the money and the City and Arsenal and Liverpool and now Newcastle, and I know they've got massive fan bases, but it's a small town club. It's a bit like your Berries, your Rochdales, they're absolutely the bedrock of the community, aren't they? You can see the guy, and they absolutely live for Saturday afternoon. Well, I say it used to be Saturday afternoon at 3:00, but now it could be a Tuesday night or a Thursday night or whatever. But you absolutely live for that, for just going to the game, and the couple of beers you have before, and you watch the game, and then you dissect the game, and it's a couple of beers afterwards, and it's that whole, just, it is that belonging. And I said it a couple of minutes ago, it is that belonging to something that if you have struggled with whatever it is that people have struggled with, but you can forget that for that 90 minutes. You can go there, everybody's the same, you can leave it at the gate, and for that 90 minutes, you're all invested, you're all there.
Yeah, I mean, I want to tell you something that happened to me a couple of years ago, and I know it's going to sort of drop the mood for a few minutes, but it's important for me to tell you that in 2019, I went through a rough time as a person. I lost where I was living, lost a partner, got made redundant, all in the space of 3 or 4 months. And human beings don't really understand how resilient they are until you're faced with some of those things. And unfortunately, with my background in mental health and stuff, I didn't cope with it very well. And I actually tried to take my own life 3 times in 2019, and then twice more the following year. And it was while I was in hospital recovering, the Crewe manager and assistant manager walked into the ward one day and come and sat with me for about an hour. And the manager of Crewe at the time, David Artell, said to me, look, if you need a reason to carry on, then I'll be your reason. And obviously at the start of 2020, if you remember, I'm sure most people do, we went into lockdown in the March, and I live on my own, and I didn't see a human being for 9 months. And because of my previous suicide attempts, I was classed as, what did they call it now? When you were sort of extremely vulnerable and
were you like at risk
you had
or
to
whatever?
Shield.
Yeah,
you had to shield.
Yeah.
Because my physical health was so poor. And it was that kept me going. I can't begin to tell you what those last few minutes before you try and do something like that are like. But what I want to try and get across is, and I know that we're talking of a different scale when you're talking Liverpool and Arsenal and Everton, but Alex Ferguson, Mourinho, Arsene Wenger, they were never going to come and sit by my bed, no matter what had happened. And that's the difference between supporting a club like Crewe and one of the massive clubs.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why I devote so much of my time and my life to it, because it gave me so much back and has given me so much back. And, when each year I'm sure you've seen it, when the FA Cup comes around and you get little tiny obscure clubs that no one's heard of manage to get to the first round.
Yeah.
And the BBC do features on him, and there's usually some 60-year-old bloke that's been watching him since he was a kid, and he marks the pitch out, or he picks the litter up after, and they always sit him in the stand and say, why'd you do this? And it's like, because it's important to them. It's part of their life, and it's no different for me.
Yeah.
I try and get across to people, and it's hard work sometimes, that say Everton, when Everton lose to Liverpool, how you feel, it's no different for me when we lose to Vale.
Yeah.
It feels exactly the same. And how I feel when we get beat is the same for the people that support, I don't know, Alsager Town or Nantwich Town.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same. It's the same relationship. It's just on a much smaller scale.
Yeah.
So in that respect, it's a very unique football club. And it's not just me. They've done things like that for us. I could tell you countless stories, but You know, it's very important to me and a big part of my life.
Yeah.
That's an incredible story.
It is an incredible story, and you know, you got. I think you were going to say what I was going to say.
I was just going to say thank you very much for being open and honest and sharing it with us, because you know there's a degree of candidacy there that you know I probably didn't expect before we started out tonight, but I totally appreciate you sharing it with us. And obviously, I could tell by the way you spoke about Dave Artell when I've listened to your podcast before that you had a lot of time for the guy, and now I really understand why that somebody like that in that position could go out and do something and give their time and give some of the reason to carry on. I think that's a massive credit to them.
And he did. I mean, I didn't abuse the privilege. You know, I didn't message him every morning or ring him up and ask him what he'd had for breakfast, and I didn't ever ask him anything like who we signing next or who's injured. You know, anything.
Did you not tell him who you thought you should sign though? That was
no.
Have you not thought about this guy? I've been on Championship Manager and this guy looks okay. Come on, sign him up.
Based on Championship Manager, I should have had his job. But if I was ever feeling down or anxious or a bit low and I needed a lift, I'd just drop him a message. And bear in mind how busy he was, he would always get back to me as quickly as
incredible, isn't it?
And it's and I'll never forget that.
Yeah,
that's incredible. Says a lot about the man.
That's the thing with your small town. I say small town clubs with your community clubs. Yes, you know you see social media from. I say I'm managing our Lampard, and you might see stuff from Arteta and well, I was going to say Rangnick, but Ten Hag moving forward or whatever, But you're going to get your bigger managers who, they put out social media, but they don't really get that personal touch. And yes, they probably do it. And I suppose for my club, like Duncan Ferguson is the best one from our club. He's fantastic with the fans and he'll interact with the fans and he'll give messages when he can. But he wouldn't probably do what's been done for you. And that's your belonging. That's that means something to you. That's something for you to hold. And that's an incredible bond that you now have with that club and A, with that person, but B, yes, he's now unfortunately not there and stuff, but the club itself is there and you're there and you feel as though that's something that you can hold and you are holding on to that. And that's such an important message, is that actually there is something there for you to hold on to, and that will always be there. And as you said, partners and wives and girlfriends and family stuff can come and go, but Crewe Alex, touch wood, hopefully, fingers crossed, will always be there for you.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. And I know he's gone, but it was the football club that rallied round and made it happen. There was other people that worked there, that still work there, that made it happen.
Of course.
And I've never made any secret of the fact that I support Crewe. And I think just being part of it, I think that takes me on to something else I wanted to say. And then, again, you can tell from what I've said so far, I'd never knock anybody for who they support, ever. But I've been to Old Trafford as a guest a couple of times with a friend of mine that had a season ticket, and his boss had a season ticket, but his boss only went to the really big games. And when they played sort of, don't want to upset anyone, but like the smaller teams in the Premier League,
like Everton.
No, like Burnley and Wolves were two that I went to that weren't as attractive. I went along. And there's people stood outside like that are from different countries, and they're taking pictures and taking selfies. And you go in and you're surrounded by, thousands and thousands of different people. And I remember thinking that when you come here, by and large, you probably never see the same person again more than once. I walk into Gresty Road on a Saturday, and I'm still seeing people I saw 30 odd years ago. And sit in the same places, and you say hello. And I was saying on that promotion video, I said I still do. I say hello to people that I've known for years, but I couldn't tell you the name, where they live, what they do for a living. I've not got a clue.
Yeah.
But we've just got that one thing in common, and that's all it needs. Yeah,
it's that bond, isn't it? It's that. It's like, hey, mate, you okay? Yeah. Good. Looking forward to today. Yeah, and then you start talking about a game, and it's like his name could be Phil, Fred, Frank from wherever, and he's doing. But as I go back to for that 90 minutes, I say 90 minutes. It's probably more like 2.5 hours, maybe half an hour beforehand, and the game, and then the half an hour after. They're your family for that 2 hours, 2.5 hours, from 2:30 till 5:30. They are your family. They're the people that you see. They're the people you associate with. They're the people you talk to, and you look forward to seeing what their opinions are, seeing what their take is on the game. You enjoy watching the game and socialising with them. And they're not necessarily people that you turn around and you'd message on a Friday, Saturday night to go out for a beer with at night. But for that 2 hours, 2.5 hours, they have a shared sense of belonging, family, whatever that religion, whatever that may be.
I couldn't have worded it any better. The only thing I would say is that it runs further than that for me, because I live on my own, and I don't have family that I see. I've not got a massive circle of friends, so it's my family a lot of the time. It's not just for 90 minutes or a weekend. If I've got friends and lifelong friends, and the only thing we've got in common is Crewe.
Yeah.
And I would never have known them if it wasn't for Crewe. So, I think that's what I wanted to get across. Everything that you've just said, really, that it's the size of the club doesn't really matter. It's what it means to you as a person.
100%.
And you've summed up perfectly what they mean to me. And I've got a 17-year-old son now, and he's been going since he was 6. And when he was a nightmare when he won't mind me saying, when he first went, spent more time kicking things up and down the terracing, and every time at half time when the whistle went, he was like, "We're going home now, Dad," and I'm like, "No, that's just half time." Fast forward to now, when he's like I was at 17. He's just as crazy about him as I am, and that's another thing. I hopefully he'll keep that up like I have, for the rest of his life. And if he goes on to have kids, then they'll follow him, and that's how. I suppose that's how football clubs that are the size of Crewe keep going.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
It's funny. So I've got a 2-year-old lad. He's 3 shortly, and we were talking. I was talking about football and trying to get him in to watch the game, watch the mighty Arsenal. And the wife said, "Well, no, what we really want to do is get him into Man United, because my brother-in-law is a coach there, so you can get free tickets and stuff." I was like, "No, absolutely not. So he's not going to go watch Man United. He's probably whoever the hell he likes, apart from Spurs, but not Man United."
It's funny because I've got 2 daughters, and the youngest one is sort of slightly more sporty, and she was absolutely adamant she wasn't going to be an Everton fan. My father-in-law is a Man United fan, and she's like, "I'm a Man United fan." I said, "You are not. You are not going to be." And my eldest daughter, she says, so she'll come in if I'm watching a game, and she'll come in and say, "Oh, are we winning? What's the score?" sort of thing. And it has a bit of an interest. But my youngest one comes in and goes, "Ha, you're losing." I'm like, "No, we're losing." She's like, "No, you're losing. They're not my team. I'm a Man United fan." I'm like, "You are not a Man United fan." She's not a massive football fan, but I think she just does it to wind me up, to be honest. But the father-in-law must have got there first, and he's like, "You will support Man United. You will do that." And I'm like, "No," sort of thing. So, it's just, but I would, don't get me wrong, they're not massive football fans, and it would be great to sort of, I say, see the legacy. And like I said, my dad is a Liverpool fan. My brother,
right.
So, like I say, my mum's side of the family from the Wirral and stuff, and sort of he spent some time on the Wirral and sort of worked up there. So, started to follow Liverpool. Myself and my brother are both Everton fans, and my brother's 2 lads are both Everton fans. So he will feel exactly what you've been talking about in terms of, they've got the kit, I don't know whether or not the youngest one's gone to a game, but if they go to a game, they will experience that, and then all of a sudden that's it. That's your team. You can't change it. You can't. And there's the phrase for the, Evertonians are, you don't choose them, they choose you, and we're born and not manufactured, and all of that. So, and every club will have the same philosophy. It's like, you chose Crewe, and therefore that's your team, and nobody will ever change your opinion of that. And and he, my brother, like I say, his two lads, they're both Everton fans, and it's that legacy thing. And as you say, for somebody like Crewe, that's really important, isn't it? It's that generational thing. It's like my granddad, my dad, my son, they're all Crewe fans.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps those smaller clubs going.
Like I've said, logistically, you've got such huge clubs like yours and Liverpool and the two in Manchester. And Stoke to a slightly lesser extent now, but they were in the Premier League, and they had sort of 18,000 fans from nowhere overnight that have all disappeared again. No bitterness there.
Yeah, 80,000. Man United have got 75,000 fans that appear from nowhere, haven't they?
Yeah,
they're in hiding now.
Probably, yeah.
So for anybody to choose to come to watch Crewe, they need a reason. I mean, two of you are probably aware with living in Allsage. In my time of watching, we've had three lads from Allsage that have all represented the club and played for them. You've got Sean Miller, who was from Roedeath.
I can
Luke
tell you
Murphy,
another one.
and Lee Bell. And Lee Bell's now it's just started the role of assistant manager.
Yeah.
It's another thing that you tend not to get at bigger clubs because the pot that they're picking from is so much bigger. They're going abroad and getting the absolute elite kids.
Yeah.
And stockpiling them, and it gives it's mad sometimes. You're walking up the road in Allsage and a Crewe player's walking past you, and nobody else knows.
Yeah. It's great though because you're walking past and Belly won't mind me saying this. He's got a little dog and he's walking past. Belly, okay, mate. Say, yeah, I guess, yeah. How's things? Yeah, good, yeah. And you think that's Lee Bell. Did you know? And I know who he is, but somebody else wouldn't know who that guy is, and you're just like, that's Lee Bell.
Well, he literally lives just around the corner from us as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will say, for the record, that Belly knows my history, and he was one of the first people that sent me a message and said, "Look, we're still here. If you ever feel like you need anyone, then drop me a line." And again, you wouldn't get that at many other places. It's I don't know. It for me anyway. It's just really unique.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we've talked then about Crewe and the local spirit, which you don't get at the clubs that the three of us support. We know that, we recognise that it's the sort of thing that you couldn't see logistically in those places. But when you're looking at the Premier League now, what do you make of it as a fan of Crewe Alexander, looking at the way that money influences the game in the Premier League? How do you feel about that?
I used to say to people that you've got to sort of have some kind of dream, and I always used to think to myself that maybe one day I could see him in the Premier League. Don't forget when they were in the Championship, they beat Leeds 1-0 at Leeds on New Year's Day. Dean Ashton scored. It was his last game before he got sold, and we sold him, and we didn't win another game till the end of that season. But on Soccer Sunday, on that weekend, Chris Kamara and Rog McCaffrey, don't know if you remember, they used to do goals on Sunday on Sky.
Yeah.
They actually had a serious conversation, and said, could this tiny South Cheshire club actually do the unthinkable and make the Premier League? And that I know that Crewe had they had that big stand built, and they had the stand reinforced on the other side so they could put another tier on top if they needed to.
Yeah.
And obviously it never happened. And when I look at the Premier League now, I'm kind of glad that it didn't, because the club I've just spoke about, Stoke, their fans will have felt the same. But when you get there and you achieve that, like, what's left? What's left to dream and hope for?
Do you think there would be something? Do you think if Crewe got there, do you think there would be something lost? Do you think not lose its identity? That's the wrong phrase, because you would get plastic fans that would come from here, there, and everywhere. But do you think that teams like Crewe, Vale, and I mentioned before Rochdale and Bury, and I mentioned the teams in and around Manchester sort of thing, but do you think they lose a little bit of their club the higher they go because of the expectation of spending money and bigger sponsors, bigger people? Would Crewe be the same club if it was bigger? Do you think it would lose that identity?
It's a brilliant question, and no, I don't. I don't think they'd be the same. I think they'd lose everything. I know a few years ago, they played Man United in the League Cup. I don't know if you remember, and they took them to extra time. Luke Varney scored for Crewe and made it 1-1 near the end, and in the last minute of extra time, United got a winner. And it was there's probably been in 30 odd years, I could count them on one hand the times that the Alexandria Stadium has been sold out, and that was one of them.
Yeah.
And it just felt like my club had been infiltrated that night. There was people I'd never seen before. There was like 10 minutes into the game, there's people shuffling past you looking for seats. You know, and they've got the ticket in their hand, looking where they're going to sit.
Yeah.
And it's like, where have you all come from? Where are
Yeah.
you on a Saturday afternoon when we're playing Colchester?
Yeah.
And I don't think I'd like that. And because for everything that you've just said, I think it would lose their identity. And you know, and the sort of not from a selfish point of view, but I'm sure you know what I'm saying, that the
absolutely.
days of that relationship of me speaking to the manager and the assistant manager and being able to walk past the chairman in the street and stop and have a word with him, that'd all disappear.
Yeah.
The footballers that to answer your question, Adam, you look at the Premier League, and I mean, they are superstars, aren't they, within their own right? But you're never going to bump into them in Asda and that's, you know, have a chat with them and
see Belly walking his dog around the local sports hub and stuff.
Yeah.
And
I suppose if you go like you did, you went to Everton first, you don't know any different. But because that's all I know. Yeah. So for me to have that taken away and for him to be a giant all of a sudden and have all these superstars, I'm not sure I'd like it. Probably sounds daft. But I'm quite happy with them how they are.
Not at all.
I was once behind Bobby Firmino in Selfridges in the Trafford Centre, and I was stood there with my bottle of whiskey, which I was paying about 45, 50 quid for, and thinking, I'm not going to tell the wife how much this costs. And he had about 4 or 5 bottles on the counter, and he asked him for 800 quid, and I thought, yeah, different world, mate, different world.
I mean, the money's ludicrous, the wages are ludicrous, but then if somebody offered to pay you for what you do with that amount of money, you're never going to say no. It's they're going to take it while they can get it, aren't they? I just don't. Me personally, I don't think the money filters down fairly enough.
Yeah,
I think the top 2 divisions in this country dominate the finances of football, and we get the little bits that are left.
I think you're right. And I don't know whether we covered this on a different podcast, but I do think that the sort of the finances in football, particularly with the Premier League, and the Premier League are almost becoming a bigger identity than the FA and the people that run the game. It's almost the Premier League they absolutely run the game now, because that's where all the finances, that's where the money is. And if you get relegated, you get your parachute payments for a couple of seasons or whatever it is, and then if you don't go back up, then that money stops. And that's why you've seen teams like Sunderland and Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield United struggling to get, huge clubs struggling to get back up, because all the money is at the top end, and it doesn't filter down, and it doesn't seem fair. I don't know whether that's right or not.
I mean, one of the reasons that the FA Cup has been so popular as it has for I don't know, hundreds of years, that it's got that opportunity for a teeny tiny club to knock out a massive club.
Yeah.
And I think if you ever lost that, then football itself has lost its identity. And I think you can't just I'm talking like now as if I'm talking to the people at the top of the game that, like you say, that run it. You can't just have one elite league and forget everybody else. The lower league clubs are every bit as important as the ones at the top. And I think you saw, how horrendous COVID was for everybody. Seeing football matches taking place in empty stadiums just proved that football without fans, you're wasting your time, a complete waste of time.
And football is a pyramid structure, isn't it? You've got hundreds of local leagues around at the bottom level, and then you've got another few tiers up, another few, and all of a sudden you end up. And it is a pyramid structure. And yes, you want to get to the Premier League and Championship and Div 1, Div 2, but you only have to look at the Railwaymen League, and is it the Isthmian League and the Northern and Southern Premier Leagues, and now all these Northern Trains or Northern Railway Leagues, and all this below, and all these teams they're in that structure.
Yeah.
And you look at other countries, and I'm a massive, and Adam is as well, and you know, we're both massive American sports fans, and you look at sort of American football, and there's no pyramid structure, there's no promotion relegation. You've just got your conferences and they're your teams, and if you finish bottom, then you just carry on, and next year you might finish bottom, and next year you might finish bottom, and next year, and so ad infinitum. You know, I mean, to be fair, Andy's team, who the Lions, regularly do finish bottom, but yeah, but they don't go anywhere. They don't get relegated. They're still in that conference. Whereas football in our country is a pyramid structure, and that surely is the right way to go.
We had a guy on, didn't we?
I think so.
Yeah, we had a guy on from Los Angeles, and he couldn't get his head around football in this country. You know, so he's got Mexican heritage, which you know full well they love their football and there, but he still couldn't get his head around. He lives in LA, Long Beach area, I think it was, and he couldn't get his head around that we had relegation, and then he couldn't get his head around that there was something below the Premiership, that there was anything going on below that, let alone 96 professional clubs.
So he was that? Did he say something? You know, is that like somebody from the minor leagues going into the major leagues? It's like, yeah, absolutely. So it's basically those two teams going whoop, and the team that finishes bottom in this one, and that they swap. And his mind was blown. Genuinely, he was like, "What? So you play a whole completely different group of teams next year?" It's like, yeah. And he was like, "What?" He just couldn't understand it, could he?
No.
Wow. I mean, to give you a recent example, I don't know if you're aware of a lad called Ryan Wintle, that was from Audley, and he was playing for Alsager Town, and he got picked up by Crewe, and he played for us for a couple of years, and he's at Cardiff now.
Right, cool.
And without the pyramid, those sorts of things wouldn't really happen. So that's what I mean when I say that a Crewe should be as important to Man United as an Alsager Town should be to Crewe. It filters its way down. And I think, to go back to the money side of things, if football in this country, let's say, isn't careful, then in 10 years' time we'll probably have 2 professional leagues, and everybody else will have to go part-time, and some of your clubs like your Alsagers and Nantwich Towns will just disappear. And that can't be right, can it?
No.
You know,
no, you're quite right.
No.
When Crewe lose 6-0, as they've done many times, then part of what gets me back the following week is that, you know, I come home and kick the cat and sulk, and then Monday morning it's like, well, it might be better next weekend, and that's what gets you back. But a longer term thing is that one day I might see Crewe back in the Championship, and I think if you take that away and it was just the same teams year on year, you'd soon get fed up with it, and football would lose its popularity. Yeah,
no, 100%. And people outside of the UK, they don't sort of understand it. And I say no, that's a lie. You know, obviously soccer and people in Italy and France and all the countries where football is played, which is a lot. Yeah, they might get it, but particularly to our American listeners, that they don't get it because there's no promotion relegation in a lot of their sports, and that they just don't understand the concept of striving to be trying to keep your identity as a club, as a community, but be better. And they don't seem to get that, and they don't seem to understand that. So
this isn't a dig at you by any means, or any other Everton fan, but I mean the title race in the Premier League this year is reasonably close. It's probably as close as it's been for a while, even though I only see it going one way. But the relegation battle's been every bit as entertaining, if not more.
Yeah.
You know, you've got Burnley and Leeds that are all jumping and swapping places. And I find myself on a Sunday afternoon choosing to watch one of those games rather than seeing how City and Liverpool do. And I would hate to think that was ever taken away and it just became a block of that teams just remain the same.
Yeah. No, and it's funny because just before we came on live, we were literally talking about, and actually you look at Southampton could potentially get drawn into it because we've got a couple of games in hand. If we win, then we go. And I know I'd rather have points on the board than games in hand, but if we win our 2 games in hand on Southampton, we go above them. So all of a sudden you're like, geez, you know, they could be in it. You know, Southampton have played 36, Leeds have played 35, Burnley played 35, we played 34. You think, God, they could, maybe Leicester are slightly too high. They're a couple of extra points above. But, you get to this end of the season, this time of the season, and yes, okay, the top two are gone. But Adam's team, Arsenal, there's top four to play for. And really, the interesting bit is actually who's going to go down. Because they talk about the money in football and stuff, and you talk about the £100 million game, which is the Championship playoff final.
Playoff final, yeah.
It's the 100 million, because if you get into the Premiership, you've then got the riches and all that. But then you look at the flip side and you think, geez, if Everton or Leeds go, I mean, Leeds have been a bit of a yo-yo team, but have done okay under Bielsa. A bit of a myth, if you ask me. Bielsa ball and all that, didn't really buy into that, but that's just my opinion. But you look at Leeds and you think, God, if they go down, are they going to get straight back up? Because I know we wouldn't. If we went straight back down, and I've spoke this on another podcast, we would go down again. Not necessarily consecutive seasons, but I can't just get straight back up. And then all of a sudden you lose some more players, and then you go down again, and you do a Sunderland, a Sheffield Wednesday. So many huge clubs that have been in the Premiership that just haven't managed to bridge that gap and get back up. It's incredible.
I mean, I've got some close friends that are Everton fans, but that's largely irrelevant of what I'm going to say. Some of the results you've had, certainly recently, like the Chelsea result, for example, that's the other side of it. Like, nobody is expecting that result.
No.
But the beauty of the Premier League is that result can happen.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And that's what makes you go back. And I found myself sat here watching it, like willing Everton to win, and I think that's that British thing, isn't it, of supporting the underdog.
Absolutely, yeah.
You want to see the underdog succeed, which is just as well for me following Crewe.
So, right, I mean, you mentioned Crewe there, and I'm going to ask you, put you on the spot a little bit now. In sort of the podcast that you've done, is there a particular favourite guest, a favourite podcast, a favourite moment that you've had on your podcast that you've really enjoyed? Was particularly somebody that you enjoyed interviewing? I know you mentioned you've had some ex-players on there and this. So just, do you want to share a couple of your sort of highlights from the sort of podcast as such?
I mean, it's a bit cheesy, but the biggest thing I've enjoyed was actually being asked. It's being respected enough as a person, as a human being, and as a Crewe fan to think that people might want to listen to me yap about them. We think that every week
in the 40 countries that we're listening, we think that every week, like, why are people tuning to us? But they do, so long may we continue.
I was lucky enough last summer, to be part of a podcast where we interviewed the chairman.
Okay.
So I got some ins and outs of what goes on. Probably about a month ago, I did one with a player called Craig Hignett. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah.
He went on to play for Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
And he was sort of my. I said to him, he was my first heartbreak, if you like. He was the first one that we sold for £500,000, and when you're that age. And
so was David Platt before him then?
Yeah, Platt was before him.
Because obviously you look at some of the players who've come through Crewe. You look at David Platt, Craig Hignett, so Jeff Thomas. Guys who've gone on to play international football and have made an absolute huge. Dean Ashton. Neil Lennon, absolutely huge careers. Huge careers. So. Yeah, I mean, Craig Hignett, I've forgotten about him actually, but yeah, Middlesbrough probably more known for. So,
I mean, one of my Facebook profile pictures is me, Dario Gradi, Neil Baker, who was a former assistant manager, and Steve Holland. Steve Holland of England.
Wow,
I've got his autograph, and I've got a picture stood next to him. I've got in the loft. When I was 16, Danny Murphy played his last game before he went to Liverpool, and he came over to where we were standing, and I went like that to him, and he stopped and took his boots off and gave them to me.
Wow!
And I got jumped on, and people were trying to tear him from me, but I've still got one in the loft. And if it wasn't for Crewe, the names you just mentioned, Lennon, Robbie Savage, Danny Murphy, Dean Ashton, I would never have got the chance to see them week after week. And I get to see them before the rest of the world does.
Yeah.
I saw Crewe gave Danny Murphy his debut. He scored with his first touch against Preston and a 4-3 win at home. And this is the other mad thing. I can tell you that, but I can't remember where my glasses are half the time. There's games from the 90s that are etched into my brain that I'll never forget.
But it's weird because you look at, people talk about Crewe and they talk about in quite glowing terms the conveyor belt of talent that came through, and actually they were saying the development that happened in terms of the youth system at Crewe and people that would come through and play the game, and just some of the names we've mentioned: Platt, Hignett, Ashton, Thomas, people that, as I say, have gone on to play for huge teams and international recognition for a really small town club. And I mean, going back to when I was younger, and you look at sort of mid 80s, and you thought actually the Crewe setup in terms of the development was, I say, almost second to none. And you look at, people would send scouts to Crewe to watch the development of their young players and think, actually, is there anybody worth picking up? And that's absolutely.
Well,
Dean Ashton
was huge.
Dean Ashton was, to go back to him, I don't know if you know this, but Arsene Wenger offered £1 million for him before he kicked a football in Crewe's first team. And Dario said, no, because you're not going to play him. He may as well stay here and play in our first team and learn his trade. And then he ended up, I think that's the best route for him, isn't it? Well, it certainly was for him.
It's a shame he got injured because obviously he went to West Ham, didn't he? And then he sort of picked up a few injuries and stuff, and it never. Did he get international recognition? Did he get a cap?
Yeah, he actually picked his injury up training with England. It was. I think I'm right in saying it was Sean Wright Phillips. I think that tackled him, and it.
Right.
He never got over his ankle injury,
and that's such a shame because he was, he was the all-action centre forward, almost in the Alan Shearer mould. He could almost do everything, couldn't he? That was the thing with Dean. He was good on the ground. He's good in the air. He was big. He could turn. He got a good touch. Yeah, and it was a shame he never quite developed into what he could have been.
But like I say though, David Platt started with Crewe, but then went on to captain England as well. So there's no real higher accolade than that, obviously, other than his time.
Jeff Thomas wasn't far behind him as well.
Yeah.
Jeff Thomas played for England.
He did play for England, yeah.
Yeah, I've sidetracked there, haven't I? Your question, sorry. So yeah, the chairman and Craig Hignett was a good one, and I think for the podcast itself, to get David Artell on was a sort of a huge moment for the podcast because again, it comes back to what I was saying before. There's not many podcasts across the country that follow football clubs that will get the first team manager, and he was on for about 2 hours.
Wow.
And they're willing to give the time up. So
and it's not just lip service, is it? That they are actually willing to give up their time, speak to their fans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a quick question for you, dude, because I was having a quick look online. So why are Crewe Alexandra called Crewe Alexandra?
Oh, it's to do with, you'll have to look on Wikipedia because it's to do with Princess Alexandra.
I thought that. She was a Danish princess, and I was like, okay, so it's named after her.
Yeah,
but why?
I don't know.
Nowhere said. Yeah.
Railwaymen. I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
Get that, but.
Absolutely, and you know how football fans have. What's Everton's anthem? What do they sing?
Well, obviously we've got Z-Cars when we come out, so effectively, we've also got there's a chant that goes around about I never felt more like singing the blues when Everton win and Liverpool lose. We're singing the blues, but I suppose Z-Cars is, and the sirens, and when we come out, that's the sort of the tune that all the Evertonians associate with the club.
Because Man City are
they have Blue Moon, don't they?
They have Blue Moon, but that's what we have. And it was ours originally, and this is like me getting on my moral high horse here because Man City is so big. But we did actually sing it first. It started at an away game at Stockport, and Man City adopted it, and obviously now because of the difference in the size of the two clubs, it's like, why do you sing Man City song? And it's like, no, they sing our song.
Yeah, and
Not
you
that anyone cares, but I do.
No, but you should absolutely stick to that, and there's no reason why they should sing your song. Bloody choose your own. I mean, I know you. I mean, I hate. Not hate them with a no, I don't hate them with a passion, Liverpool, but they've obviously got "You'll Never Walk Alone," and don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic anthem. And you go around and you look at West Ham with "I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles," and you look at Stoke with Delilah. I mean, that was a huge. Delilah was a huge thing. So mid 80s, late 80s, early 90s. Stoke, that was it. It was like Delilah belting out in the stands and stuff. So I suppose, I think Z Cars probably would be the tune that's associated with our club the most. I mean, I think is it like Norwich or something like that? Do they do Z? There's another Premiership team that do Z Cars.
Right.
And I want to say it's Norwich. It might not be, and I apologise for any Norwich fans that listen to us, but we're the team that should have Z Cars. So, but there is another Premiership team that do it. I can't for life think who it is at the moment, but it's probably that one. To be fair,
I just like it. I mean, if anybody in another country or anywhere around the world is listening to this or watching this, if anybody sort of starts to even look for our results it's a good job we're not doing this at the start of the season that's just gone, because it didn't go very well. But it'd be amazing if somebody just heard this and sort of started looking out for the results and took an interest, because somebody somewhere might end up being a Crewe fan because of me and my big mouth.
Well, you know what, we strangely enough, and I'm not quite sure how it happens, but 46, 47, 48 countries will come and update us.
46. Really.
Wow.
46. So 46 countries, and you know what? Whoever it may be in these random countries, if they just think, you know what, I want to get into football, soccer, whatever they call it I've just listened to this podcast. Where's Crewe? Oh, there you go. Right, that's my team. And you know what? If we manage to get one more follower for Crewe, then hey ho, local team. We've done our job.
Exactly.
And not only that, I mean, I've known of you two for, I don't know.
Yeah,
a long time.
30 plus
and
years, whatever. Yeah.
I didn't know that you did this, and obviously you didn't know that I did the Railwaymen podcast. And I'm sitting talking to you about it, and it's all through Crewe Alex. I'm sitting there talking to you, and now I can watch your podcast and listen to it. Didn't know anything about it before, so it's weird how it connects people. It's mad.
100%, and it's strange because we've had people message us and follow us and listen to us, and it's like we had a guy that messaged us and said, I normally listen to your podcast. I'm now in Jamaica and I'm just downloading it and I'm listening to you whilst I'm sunbathing on the beach, and you're like, Jesus, dude, thanks very much. It just
something else that was quite unique that happened, which I don't know how to word this. It's not the easiest thing to talk about mental health, especially when you've attempted suicide. But because it was such a horrendous time, I'll openly speak about it in the hope that it stops anybody else having to ever suffer that, because it really is horrendous. And I've spoken about it briefly, not in depth, but briefly on the Railwaymen podcast. And I think it's 6 people now that I've had at various times that have messaged me on social media and said, I'm struggling. Can you help me? And it's like, that's massive, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's huge.
And again, it's all connected to football and me just opening my mouth and waffling about them for a couple of hours a week, and it's massive.
And I remember talking about on a previous podcast, and it might be with a guy called Al Shep, and I remember sort of mentioning that it's really important that you scroll through your contacts list, and maybe just that one person that you haven't really messaged or you haven't really spoke to or you haven't really been in touch with for a period of time, just reach out to them. You okay, bro? How's things? I'm here if you need me. And literally, if one person does that to every one of somebody else in their contact list, then all of a sudden we've got more people talking, more people asking, more people being concerned, more people talking, you know,
Absolutely.
and it's something that I'm a big believer in, and I know a couple of people that suffer with sort of relatively poor mental health, and I might not be the best person, but every now and then I'll reach out and I'll just say, "You okay, bro? You know, I'm here if you need me. Door's always open. I'm only text away. I'm only a phone call away." And literally, it's just that. And they might not, but they know that you're there if they need it. And it's that knowing, isn't it? And that's the message, I suppose. It's been great chatting to you, you know, about Crewe and stuff. But I suppose that's the message in terms of the mental health is, you know what, just get in touch with people that maybe you've lost touch with or you've lost contact with, and just reach out for them. And it's just that one person, that one text, that one tweet, that one social interaction that they might hold on to and go, actually, you know what, I needed that, and thank you very much for that at the time. And if we all do that to one person, and everybody does that to one person in their contact list, then actually thousands and thousands of people are going to be in a slightly better mental place than they were if people didn't do that. So that's my message.
I couldn't have worded that any better. That was amazing. Never underestimate that one text. There's people that have sent me a message or a tweet and just asked if I'm all right.
Yeah.
And quite possibly on a couple of occasions, and I include David Artell in this, has quite possibly been the reason I'm still here talking to you.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't say that lightly. That's the truth. I was in a really, really dark place. And everything you just said, you know, everybody'd like to leave a legacy, wouldn't they, when they pass on? Like if you've helped save someone's life, even if you don't know you've done it, just by asking if they're okay, then it's massive.
And you might not, and you just hit a nail on the head, you might not necessarily know the impact that you've had on that person because they might not talk about it, get in touch with you, but just them knowing that you've reached out to them is enough. Now, you might not get anything from that, you might not get a comeback from that, you might not get a reply from that, but just them knowing that you've taken the time to ask the question might be enough for them to get through tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. And actually, ad infinitum, lots of people are in a lot better place than they were previously.
Absolutely. You guys don't realise you've done it with me. You know, you've asked me to come on here tonight. I haven't sat on my own. I've been talking to you, and that's massive for me. Can't thank you enough.
No, so, and it's obviously, it's been a privilege to have you on, and you know, we've obviously known each other. I say known each other. We're from Alsage. We're from the same town. You know, we always grew up together without really knowing each other as such. But you know, it's been fascinating to have you on. It's been an amazing journey. You talking about, you know, some of the struggles that you've had, and a very personal journey. And you know, from Tall Boy Radio, thank you very much for what you've shared. It really has sort of hit home, and I know our listeners will absolutely grasp your story. But also, thank you very much for talking about your involvement with Crewe and some of the good times that you've had with them, and how that's helped you along with your journey. So yeah, from me personally, thank you very much for agreeing to come on, and we look forward to having you on in the future. You know, when Crewe get promoted and they finally get to that championship level, absolutely, you can come on with your Crewe hat and your scarf, and no half and half scarves, by the way, they're not allowed.
No,
half and half scarves, so that's not allowed.
That should not be a thing.
I really appreciate you asking me though. Thank you very much, and I'd love to come back on one day. Yeah.
We'll definitely have you back on, and like, I second everything that Gaz has said there, because I'll be honest, when we did that episode with Al Shep, it's the thing that hit home most about that, and no disrespect to Al, because he was a great guy and had some great stories and has got a fantastic taste in music. It was the thing that Gaz said towards the end, which he's just repeated there, that really the one thing that I really took away from that, and I thought, actually, that's something I could do a little bit more of. And it wasn't that day, because I didn't want it to be really obvious that it was taken from that podcast. But a week or so later, I texted a few people that I hadn't spoken to in a while just to check in on them that, I knew had some difficult times. One of the guys, a friend of mine who's had, suffers with PTSD and who was in the army. I took the time just to message him, just to see how they're doing. And it is a really valid message to get out there. And like I say, thank you to yourself, Mark, for coming on. Number one, talking about Crewe Alexander and putting that on the map for our listeners. Number two, talking about mental health, which is absolutely key. It's something that growing up we never talked about. Like I said, you didn't know anything about growing up because people didn't talk about it, and that's why it's so important to do. But the biggest thing you've done, dude, number three, you've come onto a podcast talking about football, and me and Gaz haven't had an argument yet. So do you know what I mean? That's huge. That's massive.
To be fair, I did try to bait him earlier by saying that Arsenal Man United were rubbish, and he didn't take the bait. So fair play to you, Mike. You've obviously been an absolutely valid referee in this, and we normally do argue quite a lot when we talk about football. And I never forget to.
What you two have said though at the end about mental health, it's massive. Like, if I can just leave one thing from this, it will be: don't be a spectator. Don't think, oh, somebody else will text to make sure they're all right. Just do it yourself.
Yeah.
Honestly, you can't never underestimate the power of just talking.
Yeah, and don't leave it to somebody else. And if you do ask the question and you don't get a reply, don't make that stop asking you, or make you asking the question again, or don't let that stop you asking somebody different the same question. They might not get back to you. They might not reach out to you, but you've let them know that you care enough to reach out to them. And that's my message, is if you can do that to 1-2 people, how many people have you got in your contact list? Hundreds of people in your contact list on your phone. Reach out to 1-2 people, and they might not get back to you.
And you know what? Sometimes it is people that withdraw from society that you need to check on. But also, when I was going through that, people would never have known, because I was forever posting jokes and stupid posts as a mask. And with social media how it is nowadays, you can portray to the world that everything's all right, and actually you're just hiding behind a lie.
Yeah.
So it's not always the person that you've not heard of for a while. It could be the person that's pretending that everything's all right.
And you know what? One of my close friends at the golf club worked with some quite vulnerable people, and he said, ask the question, but then ask it again. So he said, ask if, are you okay? And if you don't get anything back, or if you do get something back, ask, are you sure? And that's not being intrusive. That's not being, that's just, you might be putting on a front. Yeah, you might be saying that you are, but you're not. It's having, I suppose, the courage in a way to actually ask. And it's like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. No, are you sure? And I'm not intrusive, and I'm not asking you to divulge it, but are you sure? I'm a little bit concerned about you. If I'm here, if you need me, and you just leave it at that. I'm here if you need me. You know where I am. My door's open. I'm only a text away. I'm only a call away. And it's that asking that question. And I suppose the hashtag would be ask the question. It just get it out there. Talk about it. Talking helps.
Yeah, I said to you, didn't I, that I didn't abuse the privilege of being able to message David Artell all the time. A lot of times I got through the day knowing that I could if I needed to, and I didn't. Yeah. But it was there if I needed it.
And that's the carrot. That's the, if I do need to, I can.
Yeah.
But just that. Yeah. But just the thought of that gets me through it. And as I say, we've been fortunate enough to speak to lots of different people on our podcast, and we've been privileged to talk to lots of different people in different walks of life with different experiences. And Al Shep, again, similar to you, talks a little bit about his mental health and stuff. And we've got, we've got quite a few people in different countries that will say that at times they've struggled, and we need to just be in a position where we can help them if we want to. But again, just ask the question, guys. And final message for me, really, go through your phone book, go through your contacts, pick 2 people. I'm not going to say 1, I'm going to say 2. Pick 2 people that you haven't contacted and just ask the question, are you okay? Simple as that.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on.
Awesome. So we are, well, I say we try and keep it to around about an hour for you guys. So we're going to say our goodbyes. Before we do, though, we are going to give a quick shout out to Ollie's, which I said I was going to do at the start and then never did. So thank you very much to ollies-ollies.com. They've been kind enough to send us some more stuff out for us to try. And guess what? Next week, we'll be doing a little bit of a competition where we'll be giving some stuff away. But if you want 20% off any of their stock, their olives, their chocolate pretzels, their pretzels or their nut mixes, use the promo code TallBoyRadio, all caps, all one word at the end when you check out, and you will get 20% off. And it also makes us look good, so don't forget to do that.
But only in the UK. That's not available to our international listeners. It's only UK. So TallBoyRadio, all one word, all caps. Crack on.
I hadn't forgotten. I was going to say it. So,
I know. I'm just double checking.
It is a UK only thing. And if you read in the show notes, it does say that in there as well. So when you click on the link through there, it's all good. So, Mark, you've said a quick goodbye there. We've left a message, but one final goodbye from you for Tallboy Radio before we call it a night.
Goodbye. Thank you for having me. And you have tonight picked up a new regular listener.
Oh, top man. Thank you. Gaza?
Yeah, really enjoyed chatting tonight. Love talking about football. Love talking about sort of people that have a passion for whatever it may be. And I hope that we try to share Mark's message. It's important to talk. It's good to talk. So let's keep talking.
Andy?
Yeah, it's been good. It's good listening to everyone's passion for various topics and that sort of stuff. So, and I didn't have to say anything, so it's all good.
I was literally going to say, sure, you've got to say something the whole podcast, because I reckon that's the least you've said, because I don't even think it's maybe one word, two, maybe, I don't know, but we'll wait and see.
I said hello.
Yeah, he did say hello. I thought that there was a closing out as Gaz was finishing up his goodbye, and he says it's good to talk, then I've got to go to Andy.
It's good not to talk in my case.
Yeah. Cool. So and to me again, thanks to Mark, because I've really enjoyed this, and to be honest with you, just to get that feedback that somebody appreciates being invited onto our little show, we love that. We love to hear that ourselves, don't we? So from everybody here at Tallboy Radio, wish you a good night, and we'll catch you again next week when we'll be talking about something completely different, no doubt. So thank you for listening.